AG Sports. We are being presented to you by absolutely nobody. Not one damn person, which is awesome because I can say whatever the hell I want. Aside from that, though, guys, thank you for the support. I've had a lot of people asking me for the updated information. To be exact, I've had exactly 0 people ask for it. So here it is. I'm going to give it to you anyways. Just a couple of updates, really. First of all, I want to go over some updated reporting as far as like grades and stuff like that are concerned. But secondly, some teams I'm looking to add if I can find the time. And then lastly, going over some of the transition between relying very heavily on the Madden grades to kind of incorporating the new updated information and how everything is going to work in sync. Strap in, guys. This is going to be a little bit of a longer one. It's probably going to have a lot of data, details, numbers, and whatnot. You might not give a shit about, so if you don't, I'm going to put the pics in the description below if you want to just copy and cheat. I've had a lot of people copy since high school, so like no problem. I'm totally used to it. Don't worry about it. Just leave a like, take the answers. You're good to go. As far as the rest of you who actually want to know what's going into these numbers or how these numbers are being generated, like I said, guys, strap in. Let's go over some things. First of all, I'm going to go over the teams I want to add. So some teams I'm looking to add to the report card coming up here. All right, so the teams I am looking at so far is basically going to be the Lions, the Jets, the Texans, and the Colts. And so you can probably tell what the similarity is with all of these teams. For the most part, they are god awful. I mean, just like absolute garbage. The Lions, the Texans, the Jets, they're all terrible. We expected them to be terrible. The Texans were surprisingly better than a lot of us expected, but once Tyrod Taylor went down, that team just, remembered they were the Texans, and they've been performing up to par. The reason I am looking to start incorporating these guys into like my Madden ratings and really have them as like a featured team every week is because what happens with NFL betting is you have teams go both ways. You see some teams get really, really hot. They get, undefeated and all that other kind of stuff. And then you have the other teams that are, like at the bottom of the barrel, just terrible teams. And what happens is those teams at the top, those are the teams that everybody wants to follow. Those are the teams that everybody wants to break down and they want to bet on and they want to watch them and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. If you're watching the Rams, you're watching the Buccaneers, you're watching the Raiders, I guess, for right now. That's totally fine and it's fun to watch. The problem is Vegas knows you're watching it. Vegas knows you want to bet those guys, and they start inflating those lines. And if you hadn't already noticed, they were doing the same thing with the Chiefs. And they've done it. It's not just the Chiefs. They've done it for years and years and years. This is their regular MO. And people who are new to betting don't understand that. And that's, again, totally fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. You don't know yet. What happens, though, is after like 2 or 3 weeks of these teams being really hot, those lines get super inflated to where they're just not going to cover anymore. And you end up having these teams that are like, 10-2 or 10-3 real life, but their against the spread record is like 2-10. And it's because their number got inflated. The opposite is true for teams that are at the bottom. Nobody wants to watch them. Nobody wants to handicap them. Nobody wants to get involved with them. Nobody wants to, put money down on the Lions or the Texans or whatever. And so that's where you get value, because what happens is Vegas will keep adding points to their side of the game, hoping to draw some attention to that team. Whatever team, like let's take for example the Bills this week. Bills are playing the Texans. That line opened at 17. That's not because the line or the Vegas really thinks that the Bills are 17-point favorites. It's because they needed to put up a 17 just to get 50-50 action on the Texans, or at least have a some sort of effort to do so. I'm not saying I'm going to take the Texans this week because I have not started handicapping them very very by the book yet, but they are a team I want to start doing that with. There's a couple things I have noticed with their team already, and I have watched all their games, obviously. So there's some things I will take advantage of this week, or that I'm looking to take advantage of. But again, I just want to let you know these are the teams I am looking to incorporate. We'll start talking more about them as we continue on through the season. One caveat to that is the Colts. So the Colts actually, I didn't expect them to be this bad. I did bet them under their 10.5 win mark in the preseason, or actually in the summer. So if you got on that with me, great. We're looking really good so far. But The Colts are one of these teams that traditionally starts very slow. They usually do lose their first game, and they kind of struggle off the gates here. A lot of that is Frank Reich. I think he does rely on a lot of analytics, and I've gone over that before. This year, they're also having a lot of injury issues. They've had receivers go down. They lost T.Y. Hilton before the season even started. Carson Wentz doesn't know how to walk. All sorts of stuff. And so that stuff is really just piling on, and people are just forgetting about the Colts, writing them off, calling them terrible, and all that kind of stuff. And they're right so far. But the Colts, like I said, Frank Reich starts slow, but he is a good coach. He will adjust. He will take in analytics, and he's going to look at those other teams and see where their weak points are, and he's going to strike those weak points as we get more data points. For that reason, I want to start looking at them, because there's going to be a point in the season. I haven't pinpointed it just yet, but it's probably going to be like week 5 or 6 that the Colts win a game, and they start just building off of that. They start building their momentum. You start seeing their statistics go up. Their DVOA goes up. All that other stuff. And the general public is not going to catch on to it right away. It's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks sometimes for the public to realize, hey, this team is actually not as terrible as we thought it was. And that's going to be our little spot to take advantage of them. I'm actually kind of tempted to bet them this week to beat the Dolphins. But I think there is a better angle in that game, so we'll get to that here in just a second. So that's enough of that. Those are the teams, like I said, I want to add on and why I want to do so. As far as the grades for this week, we have the 49ers and the Seahawks. I'm only going to go over the 6 or 7 teams that I highlight every week. If you do want a copy of the full report card where I have all of the different grading methods and all that kind of info that you might want to look at, I'm just going to throw it up on the screen. So it's on the screen right now if you want to look at it. So if you want this report card, which shows the grade for every single person, kind of like a power rankings issue, the one score win percentage for every single team, the EDSR, which is your early down success rate, your run plays, run rate. I even have the blitz rate, sacks given up, turnover ratios. You can read. I don't know why the hell I'm reading this to you. But if you want this, if you want all this information that I update manually every week, which is why this video is not being made until Tuesday, because this takes like a good 3-4 hours, guys, to do everything that is, let me know. Put it in the comments below. Give me your email address or your Twitter handle or whatever you feel comfortable putting on YouTube, and I will gladly get you this for free. No catches, no nothing. It's all free information. Just put your info in the comments below, and I'll give that to you. The grading section at the bottom, it does give you a little bit of a breakdown, but just so that you know, it's usually about 12 points for every touchdown advantage, one way or the other. So like one team is at 40, the other's at 28, and that's like a touchdown difference. But again, that's just one data point. So if you want that information, let me know. But on this screen here, where we go over Madden ratings, we're going to go over a whole lot of information and breakdowns and how we get to the scores that we're going to get at. Last week, if you recall, we took the under on the Saints-Patriots game, and I actually said I think that game is going to probably end at 41 points, and so we took the under 43, and it hit exactly 41 points. So the model is working. We are getting our points there. The total breakdown for last week, we did go 6-4. The Cowboys -3 was a late addition add-on, but we ended up going 6-4, which made you either a unit or a unit and a half, depending on what numbers you got. But for the season, we are 20-12-1, which is a 60.6% win rate, well above the 53% that we need. The algorithm results were really, really good for these teams that we highlighted last week, which it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 8 different teams that we highlighted. We actually went 6-2, and 2 of those are pretty, they're pretty easy to understand why. So the algorithm had the 49ers, who went into that game as the favorites. My algorithm said that they should have been 4-point dogs. They ended up losing by 2. Algorithm covered there. The Browns last week had the algorithm had Browns -3, but then when we added in the DVOA, it was at -23.5. Meaning they were 23-point favorites. The Browns won by exactly 23 points. The algorithm had the Cowboys as -5 favorites or -11.5-point favorites with DVOA concerned. This was the last game on the sheet, and so yesterday when I was updating my data and I realized, wow, okay, the algorithm is already being accurate at just 3 weeks in. That's why I added the play on Twitter. And again, follow me at Twitter at AG_sports21. But we had them as very easily covering that spread, and they win by 20. We also had the Patriots as dogs here. We had them to basically lose by about at least 13 points with DVOA. They go on to lose by 15. And again, we get the under off of that one. Then we had the Ravens, who were favorites. They were 8-point favorites, and we were saying that they really should have been more along the lines of like 4-point favorites, which that one didn't cover, but it did get us off the kind of off the pick there. The Rams also did not cover, so the algorithm had the Rams as plus 1.5. Oh, I'm sorry, they did cover. Sorry, wrong one. The algorithm had the Rams as plus 1.5 point dogs, and the number did get to the plus 1.5, and if you took that number, you would have won. I took the number at the early part of the week, thinking that it was going to be the other way around. Didn't work out. Should have just listened to the algorithm. The next item here, though, is we had the Bills to be 7.5 point favorites. They go on to win by 22. And then the last item was the Broncos. The Broncos minus 3.5, and then with the DVOA added in. Again, last week was the first week we were trying to possibly test out the DVOA. With the DVOA added in, we had Broncos at minus 24 point favorites, which at that time I thought was ridiculous. I thought, no way this is going to be accurate. The DVOA just probably should be left alone for now. Little did I know they would go on to win by 26. So the algorithm is working. DVOA is being included this week. We are also throwing in field position. Field position does typically come into play around week 3 to 4. We're adding it in there. It's not a huge difference. It's usually like a point, maybe a half a point for most teams. So not a huge difference, but it is something that we're going to be looking to take advantage of. Lastly is the home field advantage. Some places I'm only going to give 1 point to. I thought of making it like across the board, just 1 point. And I went back and realized it's more of like a case-by-case scenario. The 49ers, I am only giving them 1 point for a home field advantage. With the QB ratings, Madden ratings, as far as the offense, defense, the DVOA, and field position difference for all of these, for the 49ers and the Seahawks, the Seahawks actually come out to be 11-point favorites, which is huge because right now they are 3-point dogs. That is one of the biggest shifts in the week. That's one of the biggest pieces of line value. That comes out to roughly, they're 2.5-point dogs right now, so 2.5 plus 11. So they're at about 13.5 points of value right now on the Seahawks, which is huge. Even before the DVOA and everything got updated for this week, going into last week, I had this game at about 7.5 points for the Seahawks. So they just continue to get better. Coming off this loss, I do expect them to win. If you can grab a Seahawks plus 3, I would grab it right now. The next one, and I'm going to go over the ones that have the most value first. So the next one is going to be the Bucs and the Patriots. Again, taking into consideration DVOA, field position, and one other item I have added here, which is the strength of schedule. That's going to be here. We have the Patriots as the 11th toughest strength of schedule. The Buccaneers have had the 21st toughest. So Buccaneers really across the board just clean up here. And this algorithm has them as roughly 15.5 point favorites. Right now it is Buccaneers minus 6.5. So you are getting about 9 points of value in that direction. So over a touchdown of value on the Patriots there. On the Buccaneers, that is. So you would want to take the Buccaneers minus the 6.5. And the last big advantage we have here is actually the Cowboys again. And this is a little different because it is kind of a spot play for the Panthers. If you're on the Panthers, currently it's Panthers plus 4.5 or Cowboys minus 4.5. All of the numbers, though, as far as quarterback rating, offensive rating, defensive rating, offensive DVOA, and field position, also strength of schedule, all points towards the Cowboys winning this game. I have them as about 10-point favorites. Again, the line is 4.5 right now. So with the value that we're getting, we're going to go through the 6, the 7, and the 10. I'm grabbing the Cowboys at minus 4.5 right now. As far as strength of schedule, I bring that up because for this particular game, it is very important. The Cowboys have had the 22nd toughest schedule in the league, meaning they played some pretty good teams. They played the Buccaneers already. They played the Chargers, who were no slouches. They actually are playing the Panthers this upcoming week. The Panthers, who are getting a lot of accolades as far as being a really tough defense this year, have had the luxury of having the second easiest schedule. They actually just played the Texans last Thursday, so while they do have a rest advantage, not only have they not really played too many tough teams yet. I think they've had one tough team in the 3 weeks here, but aside from that, they also have had some injuries that just key injuries. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, but you also have J.C. Horn and these guys that they could really use against an offense like the Cowboys on defense. And yeah, I'm taking the Cowboys on that one. So those are the three big value plays. If you only want to follow 3 plays this week, guys, those are the 3 I'm going to give you. Those are the 3 I feel most confident about. Aside from that, though, let's go to the Browns. So Browns-Vikings, we have them. We have the Browns listed as 1.5-point favorites. They are currently at about 2, or they are at a 2, so it's -2 for the Browns. Maybe you can find a 1.5 out there, but again, as of right now, there's not really a whole lot of value. Strength of schedule, it does actually favor the Vikings in this one. It does say they have had a little bit of a tougher schedule, so not sure if you want to play this one or not. I did play it, but I did not play this as a straight game, so you'll see the picks here in just a second. Next, we have the Rams. Rams and Cardinals currently have the Rams as 8-point favorites. The line is -5.5. Strength of schedule, the Rams have played the 28th toughest schedule, meaning they've played, again, really tough teams here, including the Buccaneers last week. So they have not been just playing a bunch of pushovers. The Bears and the Colts were not the toughest of schedules, but the defense was there that they had to go up against, and it's going to get downhill from here. The Cardinals, on the other hand, have played the 10th easiest schedule. This game, again, I'm not saying you shouldn't take the Rams. There is definitely some value there, but I do think there is a different way to play this game as well that is going to be a little bit more strategic and maybe give you a little bit more value than just playing the line straight. The Bills are playing the Texans. I discussed this earlier. As of right now, it's a 17-point line for the Bills. They are 17-point favorites. Strength of schedule does help the Bills here. Really, across the board, they win everything, obviously, against the pitiful Texans. With all of that being said, though, the algorithm does only have them as 12-point favorites, so there is some value on the Texans. Again, I will not be playing it this week, at least not straight. You'll see a couple of picks here in just a second on how I want to play this game. But, again, the Bills should be winning this game by about 12 points. Lastly is the Ravens and the Broncos. And so this one works out kind of good for us because I actually highlight both the Ravens and the Broncos every week. The Ravens I had been 0-2 with through the first 2 weeks. I didn't bet them last week, but last week the algorithm did have them again as being about 4-point favorites instead of the 8, so it just allowed us to stay off of the pick. And it was good that it did because they ended up only winning by like 2, I think was one that crazy kick at the end. So good thing we did not take that there. So the algorithm is getting more accurate with the Ravens now that we have a few more data points and we're kind of adjusting to those injuries. Also, you may recall last week I had mentioned that the Ravens were going to have a letdown game. They had too many things that were just consistently working against them between injuries and Lamar Jackson getting sick and just bad losses at bad times for key players and travel arrangements. There was just so many things piling up. It was inevitable that at some point they were going to have a down game. I personally believe that down game just happened. That was a Lions game. That was a game that they probably should have lost due to the drops and things like that. And Justin Tucker came in and he was Justin Tucker. He bailed him out. This upcoming week, though, against the Broncos, this is not a team they'll be sleeping on. The Broncos are 3-0. But strength of schedule, the Broncos have had the easiest schedule in the NFL through the first 3 weeks. You probably already know that, especially if you're playing fantasy football. Everybody was after their defense, not because they were great defensively, but because he just played a bunch of terrible teams. They played, who was it? The Jaguars, I believe, the first or second week. Let me take a look at their schedule. There we go. So they played the Giants week 1, a winless team. They played the Jaguars week 2, another winless team. And they played the Jets week 3, again, another winless team. So they have played teams that are a combined 0-9 right now. Their defense looks really good, but that's, again, taking into consideration who they have played against. There's a lot of red flags here with the Broncos. Not saying that they're not good, but just saying that they are being heavily overrated right now. Their offensive DVOA is at 15%. That should really be higher considering who they played. They've played 2 teams at least that don't really have any defense to speak of, probably all 3 of them. But this should, in my opinion, be a little bit higher for who they have been playing against. Aside from that, though, the Broncos receivers, they have one with Cortland Sutton. They just lost KJ Hamler. They had already lost Jerry Jeudy. They're down to like 3 receivers total right now. They're probably going to bring somebody else in. Their offensive line is also not looking as great as we thought it would be. Right now they're rated at about 78.75. The Broncos have a great defensive line that should, the Ravens have a great defensive line that should be able to take advantage of that weakness. The Ravens also have the advantage here at tight end. And really on the offensive line they have a slight advantage, but the more important part here is both of these teams are probably going to try to run. And when it comes down to running, the Ravens should have the advantage there. As far as the run rate and things like that, the Ravens are running 56% of the time, where the Broncos are only running 44% of the time. That may seem like a good thing because the Broncos are passing more, but their pass attempts are very, very short. A lot of times they're even like at the line of scrimmage. So these passing percentages here may not be the best. It's kind of a little misleading. Personnel usage, though, the Ravens are using a lot of 21 personnel. They're using it at about a 68% success rate, meaning that 68% of the time you see the Ravens going to 21 personnel, which is 2 running backs and a tight end. They're probably gaining some yards. That's probably going to be pretty successful. The Broncos have had weaknesses against 13 personnel, which obviously is not the same, but it is indicative of them having some issues with heavier personnel sets, and they've kind of been lucky to the point that they played the Giants week 1, who was still playing with the banged up Saquon. They played the Jaguars week 2, and then they played the Jets week 3, and both of those teams don't really have great offensive lines. This is one of the weeks that I do believe the Broncos are going to struggle to stop the run against the Ravens. In case you did not know, Bradley Chubb is out. He's on IR. So one of the linebackers that they usually use to stop that run is going to be out. As far as the Broncos, they have been using 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back, 46% of the time for a lot of their little short passes and kind of an extension of the game. The Ravens are not weak against that. They are weak against 21 personnel, but the Broncos have been really resistant to go to 21 personnel, meaning they don't like to have both of their running backs on the field at the same time. They kind of like to keep one or the other out there. But for this reason, I really see this game being a lot of running, a lot of like 3 and outs for both sides, and should be a pretty low scoring game in general. I really think this is going to be like a 20-17 kind of game. The prediction here off the grading algorithm is 24-30. This Broncos line, though, I think is totally off. The grade is off, the DVOA is off, the EDSR is off because of their opponents, because they have had this number 1 easiest strength of schedule. I really think this should probably be cut in half. Especially when you look at their points allowed and points scored and all that kind of stuff. It even shows 24 points here. This 25.85 is their average expected if when you average both these teams together. Not the best way to do it, but it's just kind of a way to give you a little bit of a benchmark. Is to say that they would score 24 points. I don't think it's going to come to that. I really think the Ravens are going to be a little bit better at stopping them, and the Broncos are going to look a little worse against a better team. And this is probably going to be like a 24-17 kind of game, or maybe even like a 24-20. Right now, the over/under is at 44.5. So if you wanted to grab something on this game, I would be playing the under 44.5. On that note, let me take you to this last item here, which is going to just be the plays and what I'm looking to play. So far we've grabbed the Seahawks +3 at the 49ers, Panthers at the Cowboys -4.5, and then we have the Bucks -6.5 at the Patriots. So again, those are the 3 value plays. I did do 2 teasers again. So far, we in 3-1 in teasers throughout the year, and we're 7-1 in total. So both of those things we want to lean into a little bit. With the teasers, we're going to take the Bucks down to a pick'em. Now, I grabbed this earlier. I grabbed this when it was at -6, so you're going to probably get it down to Bucks like -0.5 point. That's totally fine. But the Bucks at the Patriots as a pick'em, and we're really using that to extend the Ravens here. So it'll be the Ravens +7 at the Broncos. I don't like anchoring, which means having like one game in 2 picks. So I didn't want to do this, but at the time there was very few lines available, and I needed to grab it as soon as I could so that we could make sure that we don't lose the numbers on either side here. So again, Ravens +7 at the Broncos, Bucks a pick'em against the Patriots. If you're going to leave one of these plays out, that'd probably be the one I'm leaving out, or at least waiting on, because it looks like the line is moving against me in that one. Next one, though, this is the one I did grab early as well. I got the Browns +7 at the Vikings. Again, right now they're 2-point dogs, so you're probably not going to get this line anymore. But if you find it, or if the line comes back a little bit, try and tease them, especially if they get back to a pick'em, which, again, don't know if that's going to happen. But we have Browns +7 at the Vikings, and then the Cards and the Rams over 46.5. So that was back at 40. This was back at 52.5. So that has also gone up. This is also gone up about 2 points. So both of these have had line movement, 2 points with us or in favor of us. Some lines that I am looking for: the Cards and the Rams over 54. That's the one I was telling you earlier that may be the better way to play this. Is just a straight over pick. What I'm really hoping for here is that we get a little bit of line movement back down on the under from some sharp plays. Maybe it's like 53.5, and then smash the over. If you don't get that, don't touch it. Just leave it alone, especially if you do have the teaser where we get them down to the 46.5. The Cards Rams third quarter over 16.5. So this is the one that is really important, and one that is really something to play on moving forward. In this third quarter here, which is the Rams and the Cardinals, both of these teams average about 13 points in the third quarter. They also both allow about 7 points in the third quarter. And that is saying that they have also, the Cardinals, that is, have not really played a lot of great offenses. So I see both of these teams coming out of the halftime with their adjustments, which is really what this speaks to. So again, this is not like the scientific way to do this. This is not to say this is exactly how the numbers are going to end up. This is more where we're looking for trends. This is why you look at quarterly scores. When does the coach do his best work? Is it halftime adjustments? Is it coming into the game? Is it like in-game adjustments in the second quarter? When are they looking to score? Do they wait until the fourth quarter to show up? For these two particular teams, they come out of halftime with great adjustments. So looking to take that third quarter over. Hopefully it's actually less than 17, because that's kind of a high line. But I would take it up to the 17, because I do see this being like a 21-point quarter. I'm thinking you can probably get it at 14 when it first comes out. It has not been posted yet, so just be on the lookout for that Cards-Rams third quarter. I will send out a tweet once the lines are out for the quarterly plays. Next, so is Colts Dolphins under 44, or under 44.5. If you can get it. But the Colts Dolphins, again, that's one where the Colts love to run. The Dolphins want to run. Dolphins have a backup QB. The Colts are just all banged up all over the place. I like the under 44. Both these teams are slower paced teams with quarterbacks who don't want to stretch it. Neither of these teams like to run up the score on their opponents, even when they are ahead. Both I can see being very run heavy. The only thing that concerns me here is that the Colts have a lot of defensive players missing. I believe they have like 3 other starters out right now. And the reason I'd be concerned with that is that the Dolphins could accidentally score like 24 points. Not the most likely thing in the world. And even with that, you might kind of get bailed out by Frank Reich maybe calling off the dogs or not letting Carson Wentz play the full game. But either way, I like that 44. So taking the under 44. Excuse me. We also have the Ravens Broncos under 44.5. And so those are the ones that we have right now that we are looking for. Some of the props I'm looking for, though, and these are a little bit more specific. So Stephon Diggs over on his yardage prop. The Texans have consistently given up huge games to number one receivers. Phillip Lindsay under 21.5 rushing yards. The Texans use Phillip Lindsay as kind of their battering ram, so when they're up in games, they're going to put him in there and let him run, find some room to really just milk the clock. But as we saw last week, when they're not ahead, when they're not playing with the lead, they basically don't put him on the field. I think he had a total of like 4 carries last week against the Panthers. I'm not expecting Phillip Lindsay to get a whole lot of work, if any, in this upcoming game. So I like the under 21.5 rushing yards. On that note, I also like Duke Johnson over 2.5 receptions. He is their pass-catching running back. Once they're down in this game, which assumingly they will be, I do see him coming in to get a couple of catches, probably 3 or 4, and having a decent week fantasy-wise, but also as a prop. The Colts under 21, so going back to that Colts Dolphins game, the Colts scoring 21 points would be like a miracle. It would really take everything they had and then some to get this team to over 21 points, and I don't think they're going to do it against the Dolphins' stingy defense. So taking the Colts under 21 when that line comes out. The Bills to win the first quarter. I talked about this one earlier. The Bills to win the first quarter is almost like the easiest thing I can give you quarter-wise, and I watched it not hit right now that I said that. But the Bills come out strong. They have great first quarters. They know how to play. They know how to play just without having to kind of play off the other team. They know what they want to do. They know who they are, and they're going to do it. The Texans, on the other hand, usually come up pretty slow. They have a backup QB. They don't really have a lot of weapons. Their one guy in Brandon Cooks is most likely going to get shut down by Tre'Davious White. And really, the Texans are going to do everything they can to avoid being aggressive. And I see them trying to run this game as slow as they possibly can, keep it to like a one score, let's ground and pound and milk the clock kind of game. And they're going to be conservative until they can't be any longer. So that first quarter, Bills to win the first quarter, basically, I would really take this thing up to like -4.5. Scratch that. I'd actually take the Bills to like 6.5, really, for that first quarter. So those are the picks, guys, for right now. Like I said, there's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plays that are in the books. They are, the money has been put down already. The rest of these are just lines we're looking for, whether they're quarterly or they're props or whatever. Some of these will get actually played. Some of these will not, because we won't get to the number that we want. But, like I said, I want to give you these lines right now. Keep an eye out for them, especially the props, because the props have been doing pretty decent lately, but they also move really quickly. So if you don't know what you're looking for and you're just going to open up your app, Sunday morning, the lines are probably going to be very juiced. So keep an eye on it. Again, I'll put the picks that I have already played in the description below. Thank you again for your support. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, guys. See you soon.